The city of Portland, Oregon, was alive with the hum of evening traffic as Carla Mitchell stood in front of her closet, carefully selecting an outfit for her third date with Nathan Carter. At 30 years old, Carla had built a life of quiet independence, working as an interior designer for a small but reputable firm. She was cautious, her heart still bearing the scars of past relationships that had ended in disappointment. But Nathan, a 32-year-old freelance photographer with a calm demeanor and an easy smile, had managed to chip away at her defenses. Their first meeting had been at a mutual friend's birthday party. Megan, Carla's closest friend since college, had insisted she come to the gathering. "You need to get out more," Megan had said, rolling her eyes. "You can't just bury yourself in work forever." Reluctantly, Carla had agreed, and that night, she met Nathan. He wasn't like the other men she'd dated. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did talk, it was about things that mattered: his passion for capturing the beauty of everyday life through his lens, his love for hiking in the Pacific Northwest, and his dream of publishing a photo book someday. Their first 2 dates had been perfect. The first was a casual dinner at the Rustic Table, a cozy bistro known for its farm-to-table dishes. The second was a walk through the Portland Japanese garden, where they'd talked for hours, losing track of time. Now, as Carla slipped into a deep green dress, a color Nathan had once mentioned he loved, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Tonight felt different. It felt important. Nathan had chosen the Skyline Lounge, a rooftop restaurant with panoramic views of the city. When Carla arrived, she spotted him waiting by the bar, his dark hair slightly tousled, his camera slung over one shoulder. He greeted her with a warm smile and a light kiss on the cheek. "You look stunning," he said, his voice soft but sincere. The evening was magical. They talked about everything: their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Nathan shared stories about his travels, and Carla opened up about her struggles with self-doubt after a failed business venture a few years ago. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen. But as the night wore on, Carla noticed Nathan growing quieter. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. Nathan hesitated, then sighed. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his tone serious. "My ex-wife, Julianna, has been difficult. She's hired someone to follow me. It's starting to feel invasive." Carla's heart sank. She appreciated his honesty, but the weight of his words brought back her own fears. "Do you think she's dangerous?" she asked, trying to mask her apprehension. "No," Nathan reassured her quickly. "She's more persistent than anything else. But I don't want you to worry. I'll handle it." Carla nodded, trying to push down the unease that had settled in her chest. She wanted to trust Nathan, but the thought of someone watching them, someone connected to his past, made her skin crawl. "Thank you for telling me," she said softly, reaching across the table to take his hand. I need to know that we're okay. That this won't come between us." Nathan's grip tightened around her fingers. "It won't," he said firmly. "I promise you, Carla. Julianna is part of my past, and I'm not letting her ruin what we're building." His words were reassuring, but Carla couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. As they left the restaurant, the city lights shimmered around them, casting a golden glow over the streets. Nathan suggested they take a walk, and Carla agreed, hoping the cool night air would clear her mind. They strolled through the Pearl District, its cobblestone streets lined with art galleries and boutique shops. Nathan pointed out a mural he'd photographed a few years ago, and Carla found herself smiling despite her lingering worries. But their peaceful moment was interrupted when Nathan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. "It's her," he muttered, silencing the call. Carla's stomach twisted. "Does she always call this late?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Nathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lately, yes. She's been relentless. But I'm not going to let her control my life anymore. Carla wanted to believe him, but the nagging voice in the back of her mind wouldn't quiet down. What if Julianna wasn't just persistent? What if she was dangerous? She decided not to press the issue, though. Tonight was supposed to be about them, and she didn't want to ruin it. Unbeknownst to Carla and Nathan, they weren't alone. A man named Garrett Owens sat in a parked car a block away, his camera trained on the couple as they walked. Garrett was a private investigator, hired by Julianna to keep tabs on Nathan. At first, it had seemed like a straightforward job: follow the ex-husband, document his activities, and report back. But the more Garrett watched Nathan and Carla, the more he began to question his role in all of this. Garrett had been in the business long enough to know when something felt off. Julianna had painted Nathan as a manipulative, unreliable man who had abandoned her without explanation. But the man Garrett saw didn't match that description. Nathan was kind, attentive, and clearly devoted to Carla. And Carla, she wasn't some naive woman being led astray. She was strong, independent, and fiercely protective of the life she was building. As Garrett watched Nathan kiss Carla goodbye outside her apartment building, he felt a pang of guilt. He wasn't just invading Nathan's privacy, he was intruding on something real, something beautiful. He decided then and there that he needed to confront Nathan. This wasn't just about Julianna anymore. It was about doing the right thing. The next day, Garrett showed up at Nathan's apartment. When Nathan opened the door, Garrett introduced himself and explained why he was there. Nathan's face went pale, but he didn't slam the door or yell. Instead, he invited Garrett inside. "I figured she'd do something like this," Nathan said, his voice heavy with resignation. "But I didn't think she'd go this far." Garrett sat down, his camera bag resting at his feet. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble," he said. I need to know the truth. Julianna told me you left her out of nowhere, that you're some kind of heartless guy who doesn't care about anyone but yourself. But what I've seen doesn't add up." Nathan leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Julianna and I were married for 5 years," he began. "At first, it was great. But over time, she became controlling. She didn't like that I had my own dreams, my own life outside of her. When I finally asked for a divorce, she didn't take it well. She's been trying to make my life miserable ever since." Garrett listened intently, his initial skepticism fading. He'd seen enough to know that Nathan wasn't lying. "I'm sorry," Garrett said finally. "I didn't realize what I was getting into. I'll finish the job because I have to, but I'm not going to give Julianna anything she can use against you." Nathan nodded, relief washing over him. "Thank you," he said. "That means a lot." Meanwhile, Carla was trying to focus on her work, but Nathan's confession kept replaying in her mind. She decided to do a little digging of her own, searching Julianna's name online. What she found made her blood run cold. Julianna wasn't just Nathan's ex-wife, she was a successful real estate agent with a reputation for being ruthless. There were even a few articles hinting at legal disputes with former clients. Carla's unease grew when she received an anonymous email later that day. The subject line read, "You don't know who you're dealing with." The message was short but chilling: "Stay away from Nathan. He's not who you think he is." Carla's hands trembled as she read the words. Was this from Julianna? Or was someone else trying to intimidate her? She called Nathan immediately, her voice shaking as she told him about the email. "I'm coming over," he said without hesitation. When he arrived, he pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry you're dealing with this," he said. "But I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. We'll figure this out together." Carla wanted to believe him, but the fear was hard to shake. "What if she doesn't stop?" she asked. "What if she tries to ruin your career? Or mine?" Nathan cupped her face in his hands, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll fight back," he said. "I'm not letting her win. Not this time." The next few days were tense. Carla couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Every time she left her apartment, she glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see Julianna or some shadowy figure following her. Nathan did his best to reassure her, but even he seemed on edge. He started checking his phone more often, his jaw tightening every time a notification popped up. One evening, as they sat in Carla's living room, Nathan's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call, it was a text. He read it, his face turning pale. "It's Julianna," he said, his voice low. "She wants to meet. She says if I don't come, she'll make things worse." Carla's heart raced. "You can't go alone," she said firmly. "I'm coming with you." Nathan hesitated, but he knew better than to argue. Together, they drove to the waterfront park, a quiet spot by the river where Julianna had asked to meet. Julianna was already there, standing under a street lamp, her arms crossed. She was impeccably dressed, her sharp features framed by perfectly styled hair. But her eyes were cold, and her smile didn't reach them. "Nathan," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "And you must be Carla. I've heard so much about you." Carla forced herself to stay calm, though her hands were trembling. "What do you want, Julianna?" Nathan asked, his tone firm but controlled. Julianna's smile faded. "I want you to stop pretending you're some kind of hero," she snapped. "You left me, Nathan. You walked out on our marriage like it meant nothing. And now you're playing house with her?" She gestured toward Carla, her voice rising. "Do you even know who he is, Carla? Do you know what he's capable of?" Carla stepped forward, her fear giving way to anger. "I know enough," she said, her voice steady. "And I know that you're the one who's been harassing us. Hiring a private investigator? Sending threatening emails? That's not just desperate, it's pathetic." Julianna's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Nathan spoke up. "This ends now, Julianna," he said. "I'm not going to let you control my life anymore. If you keep this up, I'll take legal action. And trust me, you don't want that." For a moment, Julianna looked like she might argue. But then she laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "Fine," she said. "But don't think this is over. You'll regret this, Nathan. Both of you." With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. The confrontation left Carla and Nathan shaken, but it also brought them closer. For the first time, they felt like a team, united against a common threat. Over the next few weeks, they worked together to strengthen their defenses. Nathan filed a restraining order against Julianna, and Carla installed a security system in her apartment. They also reached out to Garrett, who agreed to help them gather evidence in case Julianna tried anything else. Despite the stress, their relationship continued to grow. Nathan took Carla on a weekend trip to Mount Hood, where they hiked through the forest and stayed in a cozy cabin. It was a chance to escape the chaos and reconnect, and Carla found herself falling even more deeply in love with him. But just as they were starting to feel safe again, another email arrived. This one was different, it wasn't threatening. Instead, it contained a link to a video. Carla hesitated before clicking it, her heart pounding. The video showed Julianna meeting with a man in a dark suit. They were talking in hushed tones, and though the audio was muffled, Carla could make out a few words: Nathan, Ruin, and Carla. She called Nathan immediately, and together they watched the video again. "Who is that guy?" Carla asked, her voice trembling. Nathan frowned. "I don't know," he said. "But this changes everything. If Julianna's working with someone, this could be bigger than we thought." The video sent Carla and Nathan into a whirlwind of anxiety. They knew they had to act quickly, but they weren't sure where to start. Nathan reached out to Garrett, who agreed to help them investigate the man in the video. "I'll see what I can find," Garrett said. "But be careful. If Julianna's working with someone, they might be dangerous." While Garrett worked behind the scenes, Carla and Nathan tried to go about their lives as normally as possible. But the tension was palpable. Carla found herself jumping at every noise, and Nathan was constantly checking his phone for updates. It felt like they were living in a shadow, waiting for the next blow to fall. One evening, as they were having dinner at the rustic table, Carla noticed Nathan staring at his phone, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" she asked, her stomach sinking. Nathan hesitated, then showed her the screen. It was a text from Garrett, "I've got something. Meet me at my office tomorrow." The next day, they met Garrett at his small, cluttered office downtown. He didn't waste any time. "The man in the video is Victor Hayes," Garrett said, pulling up a file on his computer. "He's a lawyer, specializes in high-stakes divorce cases. But he's got a reputation for being, let's just say, not entirely ethical." Carla's eyes widened. "What does Julianna want with him?" she asked. Garrett leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. "From what I can gather, she's trying to build a case against Nathan. She's claiming he hid assets during their divorce and is demanding a larger settlement. But it's not just about money. She wants to ruin him." Nathan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "She's lying," he said. "I didn't hide anything. She's just trying to punish me for leaving her." Carla reached for his hand, her heart aching for him. "We'll fight this," she said firmly. "We're not letting her win." Garrett nodded. "I'll keep digging," he said. "But you two need to be careful. Julianna's not playing around, and neither is Victor. If they're working together, they'll stop at nothing to get what they want." The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and sleepless nights. Carla and Nathan worked closely with Garrett, gathering evidence to counter Julianna's claims. It was exhausting, but they refused to back down. One evening, as they were reviewing documents in Nathan's apartment, Carla noticed something strange. "Nathan," she said, holding up a bank statement. "What's this?" Nathan looked over her shoulder, his eyes narrowing. "That's not mine," he said. "I've never seen this account before." Garrett took the statement and examined it closely. "This is bad," he said. "If Julianna can prove this account is yours, she could use it to claim you were hiding money." Nathan shook his head, his frustration evident. "But it's not mine. I don't even know how she got this." Carla's mind raced. "What if Julianna set this up?" she asked. "What if she's trying to frame you?" Garrett nodded slowly. "It's possible. But we'll need proof." The stakes were higher than ever, and Carla could feel the pressure mounting. She threw herself into the investigation, determined to clear Nathan's name. But the stress was taking its toll. She started having trouble sleeping, and her work began to suffer. One night, after a particularly grueling day, she broke down in tears. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," she admitted. Nathan pulled her into his arms, his voice gentle. "We'll get through this," he said. "Together. I promise." Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, they did. Carla received another email, this one even more disturbing than the last. It contained a photo of her and Nathan walking through the park, taken from a distance. The message read, "You think you're safe? Think again." Carla felt a chill run down her spine. She showed the email to Nathan, who immediately called Garrett. "We need to end this," Nathan said, his voice tight with anger. "Now." Garrett agreed. "I've got something," he said. "Meet me at the office." When Carla and Nathan arrived, Garrett handed them a folder. Inside were photos and documents linking Julianna to Victor Hayes, and to a series of shady business deals. "This is it," Garrett said. "If we can prove Julianna's been working with Victor to frame Nathan, we can stop her." But before they could act, the door to Garrett's office burst open. Julianna stood in the doorway, her face flushed with anger. "You think you can outsmart me?" she spat. "You're all fools." Nathan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "It's over, Julianna. We have proof. You're not going to win this time." Julianna laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't get it, do you?" she said. "This was never about winning. It was about making you suffer. And I'm not done yet." Julianna's words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and ominous. Carla felt her heart pounding in her chest, but she refused to back down. She stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Nathan. "You're not going to hurt him," Carla said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "And you're not going to hurt me. This ends here." Julianna's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. "You think you're so brave," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "But you have no idea what you're up against." Garrett, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Julianna, you're in way over your head," he said, his tone calm but firm. "We have evidence of your involvement with Victor Hayes. If you don't back off, we'll take this to the authorities. You'll lose everything." For a moment, Julianna looked like she might argue. But then her shoulders slumped, and the fight seemed to drain out of her. "Fine," she muttered. "But this isn't over. Not really." With that, she turned and walked out of the office, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Carla let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Is she really going to stop?" she asked, her voice trembling. Garrett sighed. "I don't know," he admitted. "But we've got enough to keep her in check for now. If she tries anything else, we'll be ready." Nathan pulled Carla into a tight hug, his arms warm and reassuring. "It's over," he whispered. "We're safe." The weeks that followed were a blur of relief and recovery. Julianna didn't contact them again, and the legal threats seemed to fade away. Carla and Nathan finally felt like they could breathe again, free from the shadow that had been hanging over them for so long. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Carla's apartment, watching the sun set over the city, Nathan turned to her with a serious expression. "Carla," he said, taking her hand. "I know the last few months have been crazy. But through it all, you've been my rock. I can't imagine my life without you." Carla's heart skipped a beat. "Nathan," she began, but he cut her off with a smile. "I love you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Carla's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. 1,000 times, yes. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, held in the Portland Japanese garden, where they'd shared so many meaningful moments. The ceremony was simple but beautiful, with close friends and family gathered around to celebrate their love. As they exchanged vows, Carla felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "You've made me believe in love again," she said, her voice soft but steady. "And I promise to stand by you, no matter what life throws our way." Nathan's eyes shone with tears as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "You're my everything," he said. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much you mean to me." Years later, Carla and Nathan's life was everything they'd dreamed of and more. They had 2 children, Isabel and Leo, who filled their days with laughter and joy. Nathan's photography career flourished, and Carla's interior design business became one of the most sought after in the city. They also continued their work with Safe Haven, the nonprofit they'd founded to help victims of stalking and harassment. It was their way of turning their own struggles into something positive, and they took great pride in the lives they were able to change. One evening, as they sat on the porch of their home, watching the kids play in the yard, Carla turned to Nathan with a smile. "We've come a long way," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Nathan took her hand, his eyes warm with love. "And we've got a long way to go," he said. "But as long as we're together, I know we can handle anything."